Kathy is heading an event that will happen next week in New York City called the Periscope Summit. So she's really interesting. Kathy Hackle, if you want to follow her on Twitter. We have Ron Pruitt, and Ron Pruitt is actually senior advisor to Al Roker Productions. Al Roker, who you all know as the weatherman in the Today Show, has had a production company for a long time, doing a lot of interesting things, and he's a leader and an innovator in the field of live streaming. You know, he's actually creating a lot of original programming that's being live streamed through Meerkat and, well, maybe not Periscope yet, but Ron will tell you more about that. Shonda Lewis? Is that your last name? Maloney, I'm sorry, Shonda. Shonda is the director of digital for the UFC. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we have Jeff Stevens, who is also director of digital for the HuffPost. So I'll leave you in their capable hands. Thank you for joining all of us.
Thank you very much. Well, this is going to be interesting. Welcome, everybody. Kathy was supposed to catch a flight and be with us today, so she's sort of here. You can see her, but you can't hear her, which may be good. But we had a list of questions. All of us have been active on a variety of live streams. So I'm presuming you folks are interested in it or actually using a number of the live stream platforms. And I think for the sake of this conversation, we're not really talking about Ustream and Livestream, which have been around for quite a while, more in the institutional corporate world, but the consumer-led platforms like Periscope, Meerkat, now Facebook, Hangwith, YouNow, becoming a big group, and all very impressive in their own right. And as you probably gathered, this space is really gathering momentum very, very quickly. So because of all of us are somewhat involved, I'll just give a brief intro. You've heard about myself, and I've been working with Al Roker and his group in New York since March. I think we've been working longer than that, but really focused on live streaming when Al went out onto the South by stage in Austin with Meerkat. And the momentum has really blossomed from that. So we've been active in a whole number of areas, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And I know you guys have been very active.
Yeah. Again, my name is Shannon Maloney, Director of Digital and Social for Ultimate Fighting Championship. I've been with the company for 5 years. I've actually overseen the social side of the business for the last 3 years. So we're incredibly active on all social platforms and really trying to bridge the connection between our fans and our fighters and giving them the most access that they can to them. We're probably one of the most fan-friendly sports leagues out there.
Hi, my name is Jeff Stevens. So I do social for HuffPost Live. HuffPost Live is the Huffington Post live streaming network. Launched about 3 years ago, and when Meerkat launched, I'm a guinea pig and I just like to play around with apps, and then Periscope swooped right in there in March. Since Periscope was a Twitter-based app, we knew we really wanted to be invested in something that had some legs on it and had some developmental features. It was my goal to make sure that HuffPost Live and like a live streaming app had a presence. So we tried to just make sure that we do at least 2 to 3 Periscopes a day. We have great conversations regarding trending topics and the top stories of the day, as well as at least 3 or 4 different celebrities that are coming in. So we developed some strategies on making sure that we were first to be on the scope to begin with. And prior to HuffPost, I was at Comedy Central for 7 years as a digital media person, and there's a real reason why I'm talking at this panel is because I came from a TV network, and now I'm on a live streaming network doing social. And I really do think that social has become such a key component to a brand being successful and relevant with younger audiences and audiences that want to just have the brand in their hands right from the get-go. Yeah. And we'll talk more about actually how the TV networks like Comedy Central are striving just to get to be relevant again.
Yeah.
Especially since
that'll lead into some of our questions. I'm curious, just by way of a show of hands, how many of you are currently using one of the live stream platforms we just talked about, whether for yourself or your business? So a pretty good number of you, right? I'd say maybe 60%, so that's good. We all just met today, although I guess we've known about each other largely through Kathy. And we were, in preparation for this discussion, just kept asking each other questions because it's such a nascent area. I wanted to know what you were doing and what you were doing and what platforms you like. So we'll follow that sort of pattern here now and ask each other questions. And then I think we're going to turn it over to you guys because you probably have quite a few. I'm curious now, you guys, Jeff, what platforms are you using?
She's trying to communicate. Is there a way I can help you?
I don't know if,
Is there a way I can?
I can help you. I can troubleshoot this.
Okay, please do.
yeah, go ahead. I think, one of the questions that a lot of folks have asked us, and we're asking each other, is in the evolution of social media, where does live streaming fit? Is it social media? Is it television? You do a lot of TV? Or is it something really different? I have a very strong viewpoint on this. It's also, you can tell by the name of this discussion here, it's the missing link. So it sort of tells you how I think about it. But I'm curious, how do you look at it?
For us, being at the UFC, our bread and butter of the company is actually through pay-per-view and our broadcast agreements. So we have to be very sensitive as to what we're periscoping or putting on Meerkat or any other social platform for that matter. Our business comes from the revenue side of our business comes from pay-per-view. So we're not exactly going to go, start streaming what's happening inside the octagon because we're trying to sell that for $60. So what we try to do is we try to bridge the gap between what's happening backstage to the point, so it's a second screen viewing experience, and then what you start to see on the television when the fighters start to walk out. Ronda Rousey is one of our biggest stars. And when she fought in Brazil in August, there was such an anticipation for that fight to happen. There was such animosity between her and her opponent. And that particular fight card had 2 extra fights on the main card, which made it an extra hour longer. So for our fans, that meant that if you were on the East Coast, that fight didn't start until 2:30 in the morning, which is kind of late. So when Ronda's fights finally started, we actually started broadcasting the minute that she walked out of her locker room. The cameras are rolling on there. There's the whole countdown. I get goosebumps even when I think about it because that moment was so insane in Brazil. Like the people that were chanting in there were crazy. But we started streaming from the point that they walked out in their locker room. You can hear the cameraman talking to the athletes in the corners saying, all right, guys, we've got 4 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. And then our Periscope stream just started going crazy. It was like 16,000 people were watching that live. So we followed. And the way that the opponents walked out is that they're maybe from here to the back of the room, but they're going 2 different directions because they come out of 2 different tunnels. So I was actually able to capture that from both sides. The opponent walks out, Ronda walks out, and then I followed Ronda out. So you can see the fans as she's coming out of the tunnel and all the fans that were, cheering and the flags were hanging over the ledge and things like that. So the fans got to see that entire experience of actually what it's like to be Ronda coming out of that tunnel to the point where she's getting, the Vaseline on her face, and then we go ahead and we shut off from there because at that point you're already seeing everything else happening on the screen. So we're trying to bridge that gap for the fans to kind of build that momentum and excitement of what's happening. We also do a lot of stuff where we'll have the fighters talk to fans right after they won. So you get them, they're super energetic, they're super excited, and they get to talk to their fans for 5 minutes just thanking them for their support, what part of the fight that they can remember was their favorite part, if they had a submission victory or whatever. So it's just really, really cool for a fighter to kind of be on that momentum and talk to their fans for, 5 to 10 minutes and just thanking them. So those are some of the ways that we actually use it.
So at Broker, we're working primarily with 3 different platforms: Periscope, Meerkat, and Facebook. And we've worked with the companies as well directly in developing programs. And when we started it, I guess we're pioneers or old timers in this now, about 6 months ago. We really had no one to turn to as far as, asking advice. Well, how do you do, the technical elements of a great Meerkat show? How do you develop your audience? Can you show me the analytics and the dashboards, please? And none of this really existed. Still doesn't, by the way, in many cases. So we just decided, well, let's just go out and do it. Let's just start shooting shows. And we work with everyone somewhat agnostically, and we're talking to all the different, sort of providers, if you will, but we work primarily with those 3 companies. We clearly see live streaming as being a completely new channel. It's a new branch on the tree. It shouldn't threaten TV. It shouldn't threaten social media. There's always a lot of hype every time something new comes along, but we actually see it as being very additive. It's also a new ecosystem, so the folks that are providing you all the YouTube analytics have zero capabilities when it comes to streaming. So suddenly you have to look around for a new set of vendors. So we've taken a number of roads. We really have moved down the path of being our own programming and producer of shows in a couple different genres. And by shows, I mean we actually broadcast live almost every day of the week now, primarily in the food category. We've done sort of a talk show format, almost like an antique roadshow format, and we've tried probably 5 different genres of testing. Different show lengths, different audiences, different ways of promoting each to try to gauge what the behavior will be of the viewer. And I can tell you people tend to view a live stream much longer than they would a video. And we've gathered a lot of analytics. We have some things on SlideShare that you can go to dig up some of the facts as we've tried to provide them. But lastly in this, the YouTubers, the Viners, they all have their huge audiences. Some of them are absolutely phenomenal. But the leaders actually right now, the new up and coming stars on the live stream platforms are a whole new group of people. So I think that sort of underscores the way we felt initially that this will really be a whole new way of communicating to global audiences very quickly. So,
yeah. So as Ron was saying, the live streaming landscape needs to be developed in a way that is like a TV network. So specific programs that you're going to expect to see, and there's not a lot of brands. Specifically on Periscope, there's not a lot of brands that are capitalizing on that programmatic. Like when you go to, I hate to say it, but you go to Comedy Central, when you're going to be going through the guide, what shows are going to be coming up. And a lot of now Periscopers and Meerkat people have just dedicated their day to creating a programming schedule. And I really like that sort of alerting people on Twitter that at 5 o'clock I'm going to be periscoping from Central Park, and then there's actually audience that come within the scope, as well as people that are looking at the community, and there's a lot of people that I've met on Periscope, even Kathy herself, that have repeat fans that come in and ask them questions about how their day was yesterday, how that taco tastes yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's a very active fan base that has become your own personal brand, has become your own little network. So when brands come up on there, there's an expectation that the scope has to be somewhat produced in a way. And Ron's doing some really cool ways of making sure that the camera is pretty steady and there's an actual flow through the Periscope and within a certain amount of time. For Off Live, I started to do this thing called on Friday, where it's Freestyle Fridays, where we have an artist come in. Yay! We have an up-and-coming artist come in, or a big artist. We've had Joel Ortiz, and we've had Angel Hayes, and some big artists come in. They actually do a song to perform, and then they do a freestyle 16-bar performance. That's just an exclusive Periscope thing that we try to do every week.
but you guys are scheduling your own shows. That's another thing. If you guys play around the platforms, it's somewhat random, right? You just, that looks interesting. I'll plug into that one, and on and on. The search functionality is de minimis at best on all the platforms. So, like us, I think you've been saying we're going to schedule the show.
5:30s on Fridays, you're going to be getting something.
I think, as humans, we're creatures of habit. So there's
Right.
things that, you have your shows on Monday nights, you have your shows on Tuesday nights. You really shouldn't treat the social and the live streaming platform any differently, as you give your audience an expectation, like you said.
We're going to be
every
here.
Wednesday at 4 o'clock, this
Right.
is where we're going to be, so that your fans are not having to kind of just guess when you're going to be on. So kind of creating that scheduled viewing
And then
habit.
with the push notification, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, the push notification is the key, because not a lot of people on there's a reason why you stream and you now are not as big in the competitors game, is because a lot of these apps are mobile. You're getting a push notification, it's directly in your hand, and it's up to you whether you want to launch that stream or not. And that is really key, and it's become, as mobile becomes more and more, video is just, I said it before, 2017, online video is going to be the biggest industry to be on, and 80% of that is going to be live streaming.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because this is where I think it separates itself from traditional social media. If you're like me, you might, push out a clever tweet and then you sort of hide and wait to see if anyone responds, right? But you're not present. In the case of being live, you're literally live, as we are now, and it gets a bit scary. And I think that's why a lot of brands have been slow to come into this channel, because they're like, look, we just learned Twitter, now we're on Pinterest, and we've maximized Facebook. Now there's yet this whole new thing, and it's live. And no disrespect to a lot of the social agencies and others out there, but very few people have, in organizations particularly, have true live experience, really live. So you guys do live events, right? I mean, that's your bread and butter.
Yeah, we do
so
live events.
It fits with what you're doing.
Yes, and again, to not compete with the actual broadcast of what we're doing, we'll oftentimes hand our phone over to a fighter that's sitting front row, and he'll be able to give some dialogue of what he thinks is happening, and a lot of times that fighter's sitting with some other celebrity talent also, so it's kind of fun to see their reaction. We had one with Forrest Griffin where he's talking to Johnny Hendricks sitting next to him, and it was like a really amazing knockout that happened. So just see that authentic excitement is always really fun, and a lot of times it's something that the cameras wouldn't capture because they're busy capturing obviously the fight that's happening inside. Another thing that we're going to be doing is we just had our new season of The Ultimate Fighter premiered last week, so our second episode was last night. So on a weekly basis we're going to be having one of the coaches from the show, we're looking at probably testing with Blab and having, are you guys familiar with Blab? It's kind of Periscope on steroids, so you can actually bring up to 4 people into the conversation, and having a second screen viewing experience, and so it's kind of a virtual viewing party. So as the show is premiering, we'll have a coach that's on the show, we'll bring fans into the digital episode, if you will, talking about the episodes that's happening live. So it's just kind of like, a second screen viewing experience, and that's something that we're going to be testing soon as well.
It sounds like both of your organizations are taking this seriously. You're treating it like, hey, in a year, it's already moved this quickly in, what, 6 months? 7 months. Think about it a year from now, 2 years from now. Are you looking at this as like, we've got to invest in this because it's going to be a big play?
Yeah.
However it may go.
The reason why the way that Periscope aggregates their users is by top love, which is these hearts that show engagement for these specific Periscope audiences. When you look at the actual people that are on that top 10 list, those are Periscopers that are launching at like 2 or 3 Periscopes a day, and making sure that they produce content wherever they are. There's someone that's going to be speaking at the Periscope Summit. Her name is Amanda Oleander, and she
People
will
familiar with Amanda? Or she's now the biggest.
She's the biggest Periscope,
right?
Yeah, and she does at least 3 or 4, maybe one in the coffee shop, one in the while she's painting her murals, and one when she's going to some sort of fashion event or even shopping. There's the more that you do the scopes, and the more that you're actively trying to create the content, it's going to live on, and it's going to show that, someone is actually, I should really follow them on Periscope because I'm going to get a push notification, and I'm going to be there right when I get to see the moment.
I think I'm correct though in that Amanda skipped YouTube and other platforms.
Yep.
And just decided to go onto the live streaming platform. So if any of you out there want to become famous very quickly, I think this is a really good place to start, all right? It's something to think about. I'm sure for the UFC, because you guys have a lot of different assets now with your gyms and everything else, I can tell you the area that we were interested in was the content, of course, the shows, but for me particularly, commerce. I have more of an e-commerce background, direct response, television background. So when you look at Meerkat or Periscope, owned by Twitter, announced this week they have a deal with Stripe to do click and buy off of tweets, it starts to become very, very interesting as a platform, because effectively it combines QVC with any other television network you can think about, and it's interactive. So the promise for this is enormous. that has really gotten our attention. So the shows we're looking at are interactive now from a communication standpoint, but they may also become interactive from a commercial standpoint. And that is an enormous opportunity. Are you looking at it that way, as think about the commerce elements?
Absolutely, absolutely. We look to find ways of monetizing anything on our social platforms in general, whether it be e-commerce in the UFC store to content that's sponsored by one of our partners, Harley Davidson, Metro PCS, something like that. So absolutely.
Right. And you guys do? How do you?
Yeah, there's
sign-ups, subscriptions, or?
Yeah, well, our platform, HuffPost, is very organic. There's not a lot of there's basic web banner ads and pre-roll ads, but a lot of our monetization comes from just our video ads. The Twitter Amplify deal is definitely a big interest for us as we go towards leaning 85% of our initiative on video-based content versus what you reading a Huffington Post article. You're going to watch a video that has all that journalistic excellence into that 1-2 minute video. And then Twitter Amplify is just a perfect medium that crosses. I have a Howie Mandel video on HuffPost Live. He's also on America's Got Talent, sponsored by Pepsi. And so then Pepsi sponsors that tweet that gets on Twitter.com. There's no current talks of how Periscope is going to be monetized, but I'm sure that will be unveiled during the Periscope Summit.
Yeah, I think a lot of these platforms have very different roadmaps. Interestingly, even within Facebook, Meerkat, Periscope, part of Twitter, they're still very small organizations. I think they each have under 30 employees, despite the fact that they're owned by Twitter. So they're trying to do a lot very quickly with somewhat limited resources, and then you have folks like us asking for more and more functionality. But I suspect as more players come in, a lot of the functionality development will be expedited. And my guess is that, for instance, on Meerkat, you can't save your shows.
No replays, yeah.
You can on Periscope. But people would argue that the Meerkat interface is better. It's easier to use. But Periscope's owned by Twitter, which has all the buy now capability. And then, of course, you have Facebook, which just got into the game, by the way, with celebrities, something called Mentions. Al Roker is one of the maybe 10, I think, maybe 12 folks using it. The difference, they have 1 billion users or more, whatever their number is. Pretty impressive network that they've already built. So each platform, for us anyway, as we've tested these, seems to have their own pluses and minuses. Have you guys found that to be true?
Absolutely, yeah. We were talking earlier today, and one of the things that, and luckily we have the relationship that we have with the Twitters and the Facebooks of the world where, we can provide some feedback. I had just reached out to Periscope yesterday and asked, if there was any way for us to do either a pre-roll or a bug that could be in our broadcast so that there could be a sponsored element to that. So let's say if it is our backstage camera, that's, brought to you by GoPro, something,
Which is partnered with Meerkat too, right?
Yeah, they have.
Interestingly enough,
So,
that's another.
Yeah, so we're always working with our partners to provide some feedback or some use cases, and a lot of times that's super helpful for them because they're not thinking about the way that we would think things for my case, in the sports industry.
Right.
I think for us it was identifying where our audience was and making sure that we were there. There's a ton of now skews very young. We're talking tweens that shouldn't have email to begin with that are on now. We have our biggest audience, which is 18 to 24, 18 to 34, skewing more women, and we're making sure that we're on that platform specifically, and we're basing a lot of our decisions based on the analytics that we are given and the demographics that we're given. That was the same thing that we were doing with Comedy Central, where we knew our audience was 18 to 24 males, and we were making sure that we were on every platform that a male 18 to 24 should be skewed onto, where they can get weird. And for Periscope, that's where we've invested most of our time. And Meerkat doesn't provide a lot of analytics on where our audience is. There is a tap into Twitter, and right now we are just I actually do a very much manual way of integrating Periscope into our broadcast, where I'm actually screening, my team is screening all the different comments, and we actually send those into the control room, and we ask about 2 or 3 comments per panel when we have a celebrity. Normally we would be either taking that through our website, through our comment well, or we would take that through a video question. We integrate a lot of community into our platform. So if we have a celebrity guest, they're coming on for 20 minutes, and it's just a laid-back interview where they get to speak to their fans, and community is front and center. So Periscope was the next best thing, and we've sort of understood that, like, we will work on a bunch of moderation issues with Periscope, since there is no current way. I've been seen running from my desk onto set just to block that one person that just said the worst word a bunch of times. Luckily, that Periscope is not being broadcasted onto our website,
yeah.
But we are making sure that we pull the best content from Periscope, and Periscope is a one-to-one conversation with that person, and what we're trying to do, our strategy is just to make you feel like you're on the couch as part of that interview, and if you have a really good question, we ask it. And I think that one of the other things about just going back to the networks and how they're all trying to catch up to live streaming. Just 2 weeks ago, Comedy Central announced that they're doing their first stand-up special with Brian Regan from Radio City Music Hall next week. And that just is a true nature of how there's been probably, great stand-ups, but nothing that's been broadcast on television live in this nature. And it's
just a matter of time now. So I think for this crowd, obviously sophisticated, with internet analysis and analytics, you'll be challenged to find that right now in the live streaming world. So to some extent, you're going to be finding your own way, right? Periscope doesn't have an official API.
Nope.
Meerkat has one, but there's no well-developed dashboard, and I think Facebook is finding its way as well. So you're going to definitely be trying to find the facts and figures pretty much on your own. So far, that's inevitably going to change. I will tell you from our experience, because we had questions like, when do people come into streams? How long do they stay? What areas interest them? What are their geographic breakdowns? A lot of basic marketing segmentation analysis that you are probably used to from even basic Google Analytics. Can't really get yet. I can tell you things that we've learned. There's like usually, because of the viral nature, if I do a stream right now and I let my network know, it'll spread out, and then about 2 or 3 minutes into a stream, you'll see a rush of people. So each has its own sort of rhythm that you just have to try. And then people always ask, well, how long is the show going to be? I don't know. Should it be 10 minutes?
It's such a good point.
How long are yours? Like 45 minutes?
Depending on what we're doing. So if it's with a fighter, we have to also take into consideration the rest of their daily schedule and interviews and things like that.
Right.
So we try to keep it at least 10 to 15 minutes, and it could go longer. We'll have some fighters that are really enjoying it, and then they'll take off with my phone and take a fan while they go have lunch, or actually one of our fighters put my phone on the treadmill and kept going while he was cutting weight. So,
and the fans love it.
Yeah,
right?
they loved it.
And they kept coming in.
Yeah.
So,
but to your point, what you were talking about the stats and things like that, there's some of it where you're just going to have to go with your gut and pay attention to how many people are tuning in, when people are dropping off, kind of, the hearts that are going. One of the things that my team was asking me, and unfortunately I don't have a connection for it, when we were streaming Rhonda before she walked out, did that increase pay-per-view buys? I don't know. I won't be able to make that connection.
The correlations, yeah, because it's just not there.
We did a bunch of research on, because definitely these are free apps. They only are signing in via Twitter. And I did a bunch of research, and we found that when we had our streams on Periscope, people ended up going to our website to watch the full produced segment with 2 camera shots and HD video, just to rewatch that interview and then see their comment being asked more than once. The numbers, when we have an average stream that is getting over like 900 live viewers per stream, and then we have like over 400 people rewatch it, our numbers are pretty moderate in the larger scale. I think with UFC, with 1.3 million followers, I'm sure your streams were like over 1,600, live viewers, correct? So like there's definitely an Al has a lot of followers on Twitter. So his average live viewers, I'm sure fluctuates.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, then we went on to Facebook last week, and the numbers were gargantuan. I mean, instantaneously, because again, they have that network effect. So, but we're going long on all these. We're very agnostic, as I said earlier, about the ones we choose to work with. I think they all have pluses and minuses. But that leads us to another big business opportunity. Some of you are going to become stars overnight, I can already tell, on the live streams. The second thing is, the question we had.
In my head right now.
You're right, you got it? Yeah, just keep the clothes on though. Just kidding. All right, who do you ask? Who do you ask for help? You guys must work with a lot of agencies. I have to be realistic. I've worked with a lot of agencies in my career. I've ran agencies. None of us had any live experience. Again, I have to reinforce, this is a very different channel. How have you guys figured it out? Who have you turned to? People in this room are probably going to start companies tomorrow to help you out, but what would you recommend for these folks?
We're not afraid to try anything. That's one of the things that I educate my team on is like, always try something new. If it's for us, one of the places that we actually found is a sweet spot for us is we have an open workout that's usually on Thursday of fight week, and that's one of the areas that we don't have a crew that is live streaming something, whether it be our Q&As or our Ultimate Media Day. So we took that as an opportunity of like, well, let's see if the fans have any interest in this, and there was an enormous interest in it. So we kind of own that. So now the fans again know this expectation that on Wednesday of fight week that they can turn to our live stream channel, and that we'll bring them to the open workouts.
So you're building like internal,
Yeah.
in-house expertise in
Yeah,
this, maybe
definitely.
faster than other external parties that you may use.
We even ran into a situation last night and 2 nights ago where we actually had a team that was there to broadcast a press conference in Australia, and the equipment failed. So you got 5 minutes into the live stream broadcast that you're watching on UFC.com, and then it crashed. Social came to save the day.
Of course.
We were like, turn on Periscope. So we were able to come to the rescue on that one. So, it's like you spent how many thousands of dollars, and then we were able to stand there in Australia. We got it. You can go home now.
Disruptive.
Yeah.
Done your job. How about you?
Funny thing happened to us where one of our talent, P-Rod, Paul Rodriguez, he's a skateboarder. He was supposed to be on Outpost Live. He showed up late, so we ended up doing the entire interview on Periscope. And we actually asked him to retweet and share our Periscope from, and that's how we got all of our live viewers. Again, we go back to, we don't really have to work with agencies very much with all of our stuff. It's very organic, so we lean on community and influencers. If we have Howie Mandel come on, we ask him to share our broadcast. We know that the people that are on Periscope, that we ask them to share our broadcast so that we get the most relevant people in the room. And then we also pull the right levers of making sure that we have influencers of specific stars and specific topics sharing our broadcast and retweeting us. And we just sometimes get lucky with other main accounts that have big followings that just amplify our scopes.
But once you start going down the path, I think it's going to be hard to turn back. And I use an analogy, I fly JetBlue a lot. Imagine, for example, if JetBlue every Friday at 5 broadcast live at a different destination that they went to. I mean, it could be a myriad of things. It could be a new car, a company they roll out and do a live stream as they go across the country and let people test drive in various cities around the country. I mean, there's so many applications from a brand and test standpoint. You guys could do, pop-up fights in the middle of New York somewhere, right? It's sort of endless.
We also, back to your last question, we also ask our fans. So we'll post it, we'll post that question on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and we'll ask them, where do you want us to take you? Who do you want to talk to? What do you want to see? And they'll give us a ton of ideas that we hadn't yet thought about.
Yeah.
So a lot of our fans wanted to know, what do the fighters eat after they weigh in? So a lot of our fighters, if you're not familiar with that process, is they're cutting weight, usually 10 to 20 pounds. and they have to come in at 4 o'clock on Friday at a very, very specific weight. You're only allowed a 1 pound difference. And so immediately when they get off the scale, everybody's curious. Well, what are you eating to rehydrate? What are you eating to put back into your system?
Right.
You're not, having a large pizza right off the stage. Some of them will, but that was an interesting question that our fans wanted to know. So that's a place that we took them to. So we follow you on the scale and we follow you off the scale and
So
we take you backstage.
it's going to be hard for you, and I think the viewers or consumers, sometimes as I like to refer them to, as you can't wean them from that. Once they start, I think you're done. So if JetBlue does it or UFC does it, Delta's going to have to go live. And I think once you go live, it's really the ultimate marketing experience. There's really nothing like it. And I know we don't have a ton of time to speak, but I think we all feel passionately that this is a really, really interesting wave happening, and it's happening really, really quickly. So we've tried to learn a lot quickly ourselves, right, and share something with you. Are there any questions that maybe we can answer? Yes, sir.
I hear this all the time, Periscope, Meerkat. They're really underdeveloped and they're really new. There are long-standing platforms like Ustream and particularly Livestream.
Right.
When you guys talk about analytics, when you talk about monetization, I'm wondering why you don't use something like Livestream, which has way more functionality.
Yeah, I mean, Livestream is an awesome platform, and they've been at it for a long time. I've dealt with them in the past in Ustream, another great company out in San Francisco. I think the difference for us was the fact that the consumer adoption, and I'm just talking now about the distribution network of it, the consumers, for whatever reason, the timing was right, and it moved really quickly. Like, those are expensive platforms to sign up for if you're a company. They're expensive to get onto. If they have the capability, and I know that Livestream, for instance, develops specific cameras just for the Livestream platform, like the one in the back of the room, whereas we on Meerkat are walking around with an iPhone. It all seems sort of silly. We can't access that yet, that kind of capability for the Meerkat broadcast, for instance.
So
So if I'm on Livestream and everyone here is using Meerkat, I don't have my audience.
when you're tweeting it out, you know what I mean? Like you're asking celebrities to tweet out the broadcast for you.
Some are tweeted, yes, yeah.
Well, I think also Livestream and Ustream didn't have a really great mobile experience. There was not a push notification, and it wasn't an app-driven world back then.
Livestream's had that for a long time, though.
Second?
Livestream has had that for a long time.
Yeah, I actually live stream my dog every day just so I can watch her, and like the video is just really very blurry, and at least with Periscope and Meerkat, they've taken up that HD video to a point where Meerkat's at 4K video, and to have that in a mobile phone, there's a lot of buzz because there were apps that were just able to play with the platform itself.
So I think just to make sure we circle back, and probably UFC, I mean, I don't know if you're using Ustream or Livestream, obviously great platforms and great companies. But for us, we look at it from a consumer adoption audience standpoint and start with the audience because that's who we're targeting. I hope that they have the capabilities of these other firms quickly. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, definitely. We're looking at where our fans are at, and when we were using things like Ustream, for example, it was a little bit more produced. Where things that we're doing, from our apps, from our phones, it's a little bit more organic.
It's pretty raw, often. It's a good question, though.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Where do you think, and I, with the live stream, Ustream, they've been around forever, with the mobile stuff, like on the adoption curve, it's only 7 months. Where do you think we are? Have we crossed the chasm yet? Is it gonna, I know I heard you say it's gonna be big, but where do you think we are?
Personally, I think it's happening really, really quickly. I'm obviously an old guy and started web companies in the late 90s. That took a while to develop. And then social media, Buddy Media, we were talking about this earlier. I knew a lot of the founders in all those companies. That was like a three-year crossing the chasm, probably time frame, if you look at the development of those companies. My instinct here in live streaming is it's happening about 3 to 4 times faster than that. Okay, so we're only from March until September. And we talked about this earlier. Imagine next September. It's going to me, it will seem like second nature that we're all going to be watching our favorite show on whatever platform it is.
And we talked about cord cutters earlier too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are not, they're getting away from having cable television, so you're having to think outside the box. For us, in our case, UFC has so much content that our partners at Fox Sports 1 don't have enough time slots for us. So we've actually launched our own digital network called UFC Fight Pass. But even then, if there's UFC Fight Pass, we can still find ways to do some live streaming shows.
Do you have a metric on market penetration? I guess would be.
If you look at the official number, and the only one that like Periscope has released about a month ago, they had 10 million on the app. But I mean, I would venture to say now with Facebook, what is it now?
40 years worth of video.
Yeah, I mean, it's some crazy number. That doesn't mean everyone's using it, but that's how many downloaded it. But I wouldn't trust any of the numbers right now. You and then I know John.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I'm a creative recruiter, and so what would you say are some, for someone that wants to bridge into this, that is a traditional AV production, camera, audio, what would you say some of the core skills will be? Because, someone that has these traditional type of AV skills, where can they find a place when they're used to working beyond a smartphone?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
Telling a story, I think, is definitely the key, is making sure you have that beginning, middle, and end, and that interaction with that person in real time. It's a matter of making sure that Periscope's motto is experience the world through someone else's lens, and making sure that you, if someone that was in Florida based, if that person would take them in different destinations in Florida to show them the ins and outs. I know that Ron's doing it with food-based restaurants, and I watched one of his awesome streams yesterday that was from Roker Labs of just how one of his hosts made whoopie pies, and that was a beginning, middle, and end. That was also produced via mono. I think it was a monopod.
I wish we could sell those.
Yeah.
We're not there yet.
There's a monopod,
Yeah.
and also into the monopod was just a headphone jack into an XLR.
Yeah, we mic folks.
And then there's a lav that goes into the host.
But can I just jump in, because we had the same problem. Al Roker Entertainment, Coast Guard Alaska, you may have seen a lot of the shows the group's done over 20 years. Sophisticated, avid post-production facility, very skilled people. We're like, listen, here's the deal. You had a big camera, remember that? Well, we're going to do the shoot with your iPhone. And by the way, we've got to figure it out because we can't ask anyone how to do it. So we basically just started doing it, just started doing shows and trying to figure out how you could create technology around to improve the broadcast.
Is there one key area of talent that would be missing, that you could say, gosh, I could have someone that was just brilliant?
From like a shoot standpoint?
From a growth perspective, from an industry growth perspective.
Yeah,
what you're
it's
talking
an
about,
interesting
but-
story of this guy, John Jocks. TV, I think is his handle. And he was doing just street magic in New York. And now he is signed on with Ellen as a Periscope reporter. And like having a niche type of story is definitely key for a lot of...
I'd say scripting too, and like in scripting I mean raise the bar a little bit. When we saw a lot of the stuff that was out there was great, it's very organic, but coming from the Roker brand, we wanted it to be a higher level. So that's why we started thinking about the camera angles, the way you come in, you mic people, that may be a missing element, is actually thinking through like you would a normal story. So that's helpful, sir?
Coming from a traditional AV, once again, I mean, it costs a lot of time and money to produce quality content, but you produce it in Periscope, it has a very limited lifespan. Then you have to move it to another platform, perhaps YouTube,
Yep.
and then you have, or your website in combination, then you have a longer one of thing. But then you're kind of forced to produce quality content in a minuscule amount of time. I mean, typically, we'll spend 3 hours to produce 30 minutes of, you don't have that in Periscope. I mean, it's kind of ad hoc, you produce it.
Right.
At the end of the day, you take it to your platform anyway. My question is it really worth it? Because you're killing yourself to do this live stream to get a few hundred people. At the end of the day, you're going to take it to YouTube and get 100,000 or 200 over time, right? So is that initial live thing worth it from a production point of view?
I hope so, because we convinced them to have this session. So I don't know, what do you think? Has it been worth it for you guys or everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it has. And there's some things that are going to happen, at least in our world, that we can't predict. We had a situation with Rhonda. We were live streaming the open workouts, where there was a guy that was there with the camera that was kind of getting highlights. But we happened to catch, there was a 6-year-old girl that ran out from the stage in her gi, wrapped her arms around Rhonda. We captured that. We were able to download the Periscope, clip it, and then actually take that like 10 seconds of it, put it up on Instagram, put it up on mine. ESPN picked it up, SportsCenter picked it up. It ended up everywhere, but because we were there, it was a kind of a raw moment. So it kind of depends for us too.
We have time for one more question. I'll just say this, you can be a late adopter in this space, I would imagine, right? But I would probably try to get in early and try to cut your teeth and make a lot of mistakes. I think that's probably what's happening now. I know we're making a lot, but yes.
All right, so another 10 years, you're going to probably be taking my job away. I'm a TV news journalist. I work for the ABC news station in town, and so we have scheduled newscasts. But in the last 5 years, our viewership's shrinking drastically. Netflix and just, the switch to cable in another 5 years. I don't even know if people are going to watch ABC. So my concern is the legal aspects of doing a live stream and not being able to have the same regulations like the FCC has. If someone's going to run and streak in a shot, or if a shooting happens live on TV or whatever it is, there are ways to delay it. Are you concerned as broadcasters yourself, as journalists yourself, because that's what you're doing, you're telling stories, about what you're getting on air and not being able to control the environment? Because it is all on.
Yeah. Anyone else have another question? No, I'm just...
And legal, adding to her, legal releases. If I'm streaming this right now, what are the legal releases? I mean, she would have to get legal releases, but most people who do live streams don't have legal releases.
Yeah, look, that is it's a question and a statement, right? I mean, and I feel if you folks have been involved with, web companies and privacy and then HIPAA and insurance startups over the years, these issues have come up continuously. I feel like they're never ending, actually, in today's world. I do believe that over time, though, they do sort themselves out. I could think of so many reasons not to pursue this path. It's sort of endless, but we're just plowing ahead and doing it. Are we concerned about it? Yes. Thank you for calling me a journalist. I don't consider myself one, although
Or a storyteller.
We're storytellers.
Creating content or journalism.
I think, though, that's one element to it, because I said early on, I'm looking at it as a content and a commerce platform. And I think that's really where a lot of this will evolve. But I think, like any platform, the authentic people will come out and the issues will be solved. But there's no question, with a lot of the big brands, someone hijacking one of your fights, right? Or that's going to be an enormous issue. How are you guys dealing with that?
Kind of a twofold answer to that is one, fortunately for us, where we are doing a lot of our Periscopes, when you're entering the arena, there is a sign as you're walking in that says you're being recorded, you're basically giving us the right to use your name, likeness, if we decide to turn something into a commercial and things like that. So we're kind of covered on that part. But, if we're looking at things like doing a blab and we're inviting fans to come in, and if the fan comes in and just in the first 10 seconds just starts ranting off vulgar words, we can't stop that. We were talking about that earlier, how do you control that? And sometimes you can't. You just have to have the, I used to work in radio. We don't have the delay button on social. It's just, you kind of have to wing it. And it's the Wild West in this space. We're all learning. Sometimes people say, oh, I'm an expert in this. And it's just like, no, you're not. We're all learning this. Let's be real.
It seems like a lot of the local affiliates, from what I've seen on both Periscope and Meerkat, a lot of the big users right now are the local affiliates of television news rooms.
They are actually a lot. And there's also the Weather Channel is doing some really fun stuff where they are reporting on tornado watches with screens behind them and have like a multi-camera thing just for Periscope. It's a little bit down and dirty right now, and that's how I convinced a lot of my team to invest in Periscope and just be on it as much as possible, because it's a little bit down and dirty, and right from the get-go, the camera guy on camera one always grunted when I set up the Periscope. He goes, "Oh, you're taking my job," and kind of thing like that. But guess what? When I saw him do it on Friday, he loves the scope, and he's on his downtime, he's watching Periscopes, and he finds it very entertaining. I get lost in watching it sometimes, and the replays. Going back to your question, I just want to say, today they just launched a landing page on periscope.com/username. So I believe they're in the works. I'm trying to make these videos last long, or if something goes wrong with a Periscope, I can just delete it with one swipe, and it's gone forever. There's also another third-party tool called Catch, where it catches a periscope and it captures all the comments as well as the video that then lives on forever. So theoretically, I could target and rewatch that stream after that one first day. I think that the guys at Catches are doing some really fun things. And this new change that happened today, I know Kathy wanted to really talk about it, which was this, is the new landing page for Periscope a catch killer, as she said earlier on Periscope.
We're out of time. I don't want to leave though thinking that, you know, the goal is to take anyone's job, right? I think that there'll be new jobs, new opportunities created from this very exciting channel, and we thank you for your time and questions. Appreciate it.